This scene just took place in Hong Kong. The person who filmed this stood in the subway and watched the water rushing into the subway station, but couldn't do anything about it. This is widely circulated footage of a flood scene in which neighborhoods have turned into oceans of fast-moving water. But this is just a snapshot. Half of Hong Kong is said to be in bad shape, all flooded. The torrential rain was brought by Haikui, a typhoon that made landfall in the Chinese province of Fujian on Tuesday. Although it later weakened into a tropical depression, its slow-moving clouds have dumped huge volumes of precipitation on areas still soaked by rain from a super typhoon a week earlier. Late at night on September 7th, Hong Kong started to receive heavy rainfall. The city was paralyzed for almost the entire duration. The floodwater in the streets was so big that it looked like a small river. The Hong Kong Observatory continued to issue black rainstorm warnings, while Shenzhen was too slow in announcing flood discharge notifications, provoking outrage from the Hong Kong people. At 23:05 hours on September 7th, the Hong Kong Observatory issued a black rainstorm warning. The black warning signifies that rain exceeding 70 millimeters an hour has or is expected to fall. It recorded 158.1 millimeters of rain in 1 hour from 2300 hours on the same day, the highest in 140 years of meteorological records in Hong Kong. The bus was traveling through floodwaters. What a frightening moment for the passengers on board. In some places, the water wasn't too deep, and people were able to wade through it. According to Hong Kong media reports, several videos on social media showed that heavy rainfall on the evening of September 7th led to flooding in many places in Hong Kong, and the city's public transportation was seriously disrupted. Most of the cars couldn't move and were stuck in the water. The whole city's transportation system was virtually paralyzed. Firefighters also responded. However, due to the high water, they couldn't move smoothly in some places. Even the ambulance got stuck. Hong Kong subway was flooded, and no train was able to pull into the station. Floodwater gushed into the MTR. There are places covered with mud and water. The floodwater rushed into the underground garages with strong force, leaving them waterlogged. Water was as high as half of the vehicles in some places and submerged the entire vehicles in others. Up to 8 a.m. on August 8th, the observatory continued to issue the black rainstorm warnings. This is the longest duration of the black rainstorm warning in Hong Kong since it was introduced. Shenzhen, Guangdong province in mainland China also saw torrential rainfall on the evening of September 7th. Buses The Hong Kong government announced in a press release issued at 11:44 p.m. on September 7th that the Shenzhen government had informed Hong Kong that the Shenzhen Reservoir would discharge floodwater at midnight on September 8th. It meant that the flood discharge would take place in 16 minutes. The notice to discharge the floodwater came too late to react and has drawn skepticism and outrage from the Hong Kong public. Some mocked. 16 minutes notice was given to get ready. Be grateful. On the Facebook page of Hong Kong's chief executive John Lee, a netizen left a message saying that there was a previous claim that the flood discharge was fake news and people didn't make any preparations as a result. Suddenly, the flood discharge was announced in the middle of the night. Don't you know that most people in Hong Kong go to bed early? Why don't you condemn Shenzhen for being irresponsible? You only gave 16 minutes notice to notify the public of the flood discharge. The public demands justice. These videos and pictures show that Hong Kong has almost reproduced the tragic experience of cities in Hebei province, which were flooded in early August this year in order to protect Beijing. Hong Kong people are upset that the government only cares about protecting Shenzhen, but abandons Hong Kong. They made sarcastic comments that Hong Kong turned into Drazhou and thanked the Beijing government for it. In response to the sudden flooding, a Shenzhen official emphasized that the water from the Shenzhen Reservoir would be discharged along the Shenzhen River into Shenzhen Bay. However, it didn't happen as described by the official, but rather brought a major flood to Hong Kong. The extreme weather set off a landslide in a residential district, sending rocks, mud, and floodwater cascading across the area. It was the first time the district has witnessed a landslide, and some residents said they were terrified and traumatized by the scene.
I've never seen a scene like this before. It's the first time I've witnessed such a severe situation. Even during previous typhoons, it was never this severe. It's quite terrifying to see.
Yeah, never. This is my first time ever seeing this. Because before it rained, it never happened like this. There was no landslide ever. We never thought there would be any landslides here. But today it changed. This is the first time a landslide happened here. And I didn't think that something like this will happen. So it's very traumatizing.
China's Pearl River Delta region has been hit by heavy rainfalls since the evening of September 7th, especially in Shenzhen. As the impact of the rainstorm expanded, major disasters such as flooding, mudslides, and road disruptions continue to be reported in the region.
My goodness, this is horrible. The entire Wutongshan is about to be flooded. The ball field, the park, they're all flooded. The stores are flooded too. It's terrifying.
The heavy rainfall made the Shenzhen Reservoirs water level reach the flood limit, so the government decided to discharge floodwater at 12:15 a.m. on September 8th. It was scheduled that the flow rate would be 70 to 80 cubic meters per second and then increase the flow rate of the floodwater to 120 cubic meters per second at 3:15 a.m. Flooding also made water in some areas of Shenzhen rise quickly in a short period of time. This was the early morning of September 8th when Shenzhen began the flood discharge. The floodwaters passed through a small neighborhood in Shenzhen. Let's go back to Hong Kong. This is what the city looks like after the flood.
Because schools were cancelled, so yes, I had to stay at home with the kids. We wanted to go to Tung Chung, but there was a tree that fell and blocked the road, so that affected the buses operation.
77-year-old Hong Kong beekeeper Mr. Cho navigated his mudded backyard through the debris left in the aftermath of the severe flooding on September 8th, gazing at his drenched beehives with a helpless sigh. His 2-decade-old private beekeeping farm has suffered devastating losses as record rainfall drenched the Asian financial hub of Hong Kong from late on September 8th to September 9th. Cho lives in a village located in the northeastern part of Hong Kong's New Territories, near the mainland Chinese city of Shenzhen. Everything here needs to be cleaned up. The gas tanks have all leaked. I used wooden boards to block the door last night. These walls have very few leaks. It's mostly seepage. If the door is opened, it's like opening a gate, and water inside the room and outside becomes the same level. In that case, the losses would be even greater.
Could you sleep last night?
I didn't sleep at all. I kept pumping water until 6:30 a.m. in the morning. Last night was even worse because the water rose very quickly during the drainage process in Shenzhen. I had an electric water pump at home, and I used both the pump and manual labor to try to pump the water. After a while, I gave up, and the water just kept rising. Cho said that he had never witnessed such a downpour before, with the water level rising to chest height at the peak of the flood. Floodwater along with debris flowed downhill behind his house. Cho used both electric pumps and his hands for drainage throughout the night, only finding rest in the early morning when the flood retreated. All of Cho's beehives were soaked and his crops were washed away, resulting in significant losses. He hopes that the government can provide some post-disaster assistance. That's all for this episode. Here are some more images of the flood.